Nearly 200 Azerbaijani soldiers have been reported killed and dozens of civilians wounded during clashes with Armenia that broke out early Sunday. The COVID-19 has gloomily surpassed a record of 1 million deaths worldwide on Sunday. A federal judge in the United States suspends the ban imposed by President Donald Trump's administration on Chinese-owned video app Tik Tok. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmeiro. About 200 Azerbaijani soldiers have been killed after hostilities broke out on Sunday between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the long-disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Armen Press reports representatives of the Defense Ministry of Armenia, Artsran Havanaskayan, informed of the casualties and noted that clashes between continued military operations mainly take place in the northern and southern directions of Artsakh. Both Baku and Yerevan have traded blame over who started the fighting, which has caused a number of military and civilian casualties, including at least one child. The two nations also declared martial law across their territories and total mobilization of their male population. In response to the growing crisis, Turkey has thrown its support behind Azerbaijan, blaming Armenia for playing with fire, while Russia has pleaded with the two former Soviet republics to stop fighting and offered to carry out mediation efforts.
Azerbaijan did not perform any provocation. Azerbaijan simply defends its interests, supports its position, and openly pursues its policy. We have repeatedly stated that Nagorno-Karabakh is the primordial historical Azerbaijani land, and this is true. Our position is based on international law and justice. We are fighting on our own land. Today, the Azerbaijani army is dealing crushing blows to the enemy on Azerbaijani soil. Today, the Azerbaijani army on its territory protects the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. What is the Armenian soldiers doing on our land? What is the Armenian army doing on our land?
The Artsakh Republic has been under attacks unleashed by Azerbaijan's armed forces since early Sunday. The capital city of Stepanakert and civil infrastructure are being targeted. There are casualties and injuries, including among the civilian population. Ilham Aliyev's dictatorial regime has resumed the hostilities. It is a war imposed on the Armenian people. It is a war against our independence, freedom, and dignity.
For his part, the president of the de facto Republic of Artsakh has also declared martial law and a total military mobilization across the region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
In the conditions of martial law, in a few minutes I will sign a decree on general mobilization and call on the entire population to unite around the government of Artsakh and Armenia. Most of all people of Artsakh everywhere want peace. We have already said that the responsibility for any resumption of the war will rest with the government of Azerbaijan, today and tomorrow and in the future.
Nagorno-Karabakh, a predominantly ethnic Armenian territory, was merged with Azerbaijan back in 1921 by Soviet authorities. However, following the collapse of the USSR in 1991, Armenian separatists seized the region in a move supported by Yerevan. The ensuing war left 30,000 dead and forced hundreds of thousands from their homes. Following a ceasefire agreement mediated by Russia and the U.S., sporadic fighting erupted over the years, most recently in 2016, when at least 110 people were killed. In the departmental and municipal elections in Uruguay, the Broad Front won the main municipalities of the country, as are Montevideo and Canelones, according to projections. With about 85% of citizen participation in Montevideo leads to representatives of the broad front. Carolina Cose with close 51% of the votes. The National Party continues to lead the departmental elections in the interior of the country. The Uruguayan population attended this Sunday the voting centers to elect the mayors of 19 departments, as well as the formation of departmental boards, mayoral offices with 125 mayors and 500 councillors, who will govern during the next 5 years. A caravan of cars and bicycles rode around Chile's capital in support of the October 25 referendum to amend the country's dictatorship-era constitution. The referendum was one of the key demands of the massive anti-government demonstrations last year. Many Chileans believe the current constitution, which was approved under the military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, has led to growing inequalities and state violence. The mobilization came just one day after similar protests by the far right against the referendum.
Approval is not only a political decision. It is also a free reestablishment of the dignity that we all want. And that is what the respect for human rights is all about, as the basis of any democracy. And this new constitution must reflect the Constitutional Convention so that it is also equal for everyone.
The 25th is crucial. It is a historic opportunity. We are giving ourselves the chance to discuss the constitution we want for the next 50 years. A constitution born in democracy, which will bring...
And the Mexican government has announced advancements in the investigation into the disappearance of 43 students from Ayotzinapa. 6 years later, the administration has promised to prosecute anyone who might have been involved in the incident.
Indignation over the disappearance of 43 students from Ayotzinapa has remained intact over the years. Since 2014, Mexican citizens have taken to the streets countless times to demand an end to impunity. Relatives and friends of the 43 victims led a mobilization on the 6-year anniversary of their disappearance. Once again, they demanded truth, justice, and that those responsible be punished. But earlier in the day, they joined President Andrés Manuel López Obrador for a special news conference.
As a mother, I ask that we continue to move forward together. We know you are most willing and we thank you. We are glad to see you are more human than your predecessors, but you can always do more.
In response, the president reaffirmed his compromise towards the truth and announced that arrest orders have been issued against military personnel who may have had a hand in the disappearance.
We will not protect anyone. There is no impunity. When I was on the campaign trail, I would hear whispers that if the army had been involved in the Ayotzinapa case, they would have to be protected.
The Attorney General added that 80 arrest orders have been issued, among them against Tomás Herón, who is suspected of being paid up to $44 million to vary evidence and block the investigation.
The previous administration, from the very top to low-tier public servants, they all hid the truth. They lied, they tortured, and they misdirected the investigation. They sought impunity, but we are uncovering the entire plot.
The government has announced that the investigation will continue, adding that there is no rush to reach a tenuous conclusion that would only benefit those responsible, as previous administrations did.
Senegal has called for a delay in the payment of debts by African countries to global financial institutions until 2021. Addressing the UN General Assembly, the foreign minister said debt cancellation was needed to free up resources to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. He also lamented sabotage against African nations by the UN Security Council, which he said is highlighted by the lack of permanent seats on the Council.
I take this opportunity to commend the efforts made by the members of the G20, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund in the context of initiative for suspension of debt servicing, I would call on the African Union to continue its efforts to attain moratorium to 2021. One may wonder why Africa is the only continent not to have a permanent seat at the Security Council in the light of all of this.
Also addressing the Assembly, Madagascar's Prime Minister Christian Ensai urged African countries to work together to tackle the challenges of the continent faces. Ensai expressed concern over the continuation of conflicts in some parts of Africa. He added that cooperation was needed to overcome the pandemic.
It is through solidarity and cooperation that we will be able to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the form and the tangible beneficial meaning that we can give to and also receive from multilateralism.
And we'll take a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The world has officially recorded 1 million deaths from COVID-19 this Sunday. The record was published by an AFP tally based on official sources on Sunday evening, showing a total of 1 million deaths, being Latin America the worst affected on the region, with over 300,000 deaths, of which over 141,000 has been recorded in Brazil. Mali's transitional president has named the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mokhtar Owane, as the country's prime minister. The appointment of a civilian prime minister was a major condition imposed by the West African Regional Economic Bloc, ECOWAS, in order to lift the sanctions that were imposed after last month's military coup. ECOWAS had previously closed borders with Mali and stopped financial transactions to put pressure on the military junta to quickly return to a civilian government. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara has said that the new West African currency that was scheduled to replace the France-backed CFA franc this year has been delayed by the coronavirus pandemic, and its launch could now be up to 5 years away. Last December, West Africa's eight-nation monetary union announced it would cut some financial links with Paris and switch to the new currency called the ECO by the end of 2020, while keeping it plugged to the euro. But the plans have been frustrated as countries have been forced to grapple with the economic fallout from the pandemic. The International Monetary Fund expects sub-Saharan Africa's economy to contract by 3% this year, its worst performance on record. South African environmental activists have rallied in Cape Town to demand government action on climate change. The activists braved rainy weather and gathered outside Parliament to protest against what they say is the state's inaction. They also urged the national power company Eskom to start using more renewable sources of energy.
We're here to kind of raise awareness about all the crises that are going on globally, where our environment is being destroyed, and we forget that that's our home, and we're here to hopefully raise awareness to create some change.
Saudi Arabia's king announced that the next G20 Leaders Summit will be held virtually under the theme of realizing opportunities of the 21st century for all. In a statement, King Salman bin Abdulaziz said this 2020 virtual summit will be held from November 21 to 22. He also said that Saudi G20 presidency will build on the success of the extraordinary virtual G20 leaders summit held in March and on the outcomes of over 100 virtual working groups and ministerial meetings. Yemen's internationally recognized government and Houthi rebels have signed a prisoner exchange deal. The warring sides reached a consensus during United Nations-led talks in Switzerland. Under the deal, 1,081 prisoners and detainees from both sides are to be released. Yemen has been devastated by a conflict that erupted in March 2015 after Houthi rebels seized the capital Sana'a and forced Saudi-backed President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi to flee the country.
It will also send an important message about the conflict. And it will indicate that when you show good faith and willingness to compromise, as you have, peaceful negotiations can succeed, and they will succeed, in bringing relief to the Yemeni people and building confidence for the peace process.
Palestinian citizens living in the occupied West Bank have mobilized against the normalization of relationships between Israel and a number of Arab states. The protest was also in support of the government, as citizens say they stand behind President Mahmoud Abbas. The demonstration follows an agreement by Fatah and Hamas to hold the first election since 2006 within the next 6 months.
We will not accept anyone coming on an American or Israeli tank. The Palestinian people have their own independent will. The Palestinian people have paid a heavy price for this independent will. Therefore, our institutions choose our president, our legislative council, and national council. The entire Palestinian people supports the president.
There is no peace, nor negotiations, nor normalization, but the will of the Palestinian people. These governments are not important. We count on the people of the Emirates, the people of Bahrain, and the people of the world at this particular time.
And hundreds of mourners gathered in the occupied Gaza Strip on Sunday for the funeral of 2 brothers who were shot by Egyptian naval forces on Friday. A third brother, who was also shot during the incident, is currently receiving treatment in Cairo. Reports said that 3 fishermen were working near the Gaza-Egypt maritime border when they were attacked. The Egyptian government has yet to comment, but the Palestinian Fishermen's Union said its members usually work in the area.
It seems that they were fishing inside the Egyptian sea border, and it appears that the Egyptian naval forces shot them. It is kind of an execution. One was shot in his head, the other in his chest, and the other one was shot in his leg. This is what happened. If it was an enemy, they would not have done that. We say that the Egyptians are our brothers. We are from the same religion, and they do this to us.
And we'll be right back after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. A federal judge in the United States suspended the ban imposed by President Donald Trump's administration against the downloading the Chinese app Tik Tok. After hearing arguments about freedom of expression and national security by TikTok's lawyers, owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, District Judge Carl Nichols issued a temporary injunction to suspend the ban at TikTok's request. The Trump administration orders sought to ban new downloads of the app from midnight, but would allow the use of TikTok until November 12th, when all usage would be blocked. In the United States, wildfires are continuing to ravage the state of California, this time in Napa County. Dubbed as the Glass Fire, the blaze in Napa County has grown into 1,000 acres and remains at 0% containment. The U.S. Forest Service announced on Friday that it was extending the closure of all national forest reserves in California due to concerns over wildfire conditions and critical limitations on firefighting resources. Various studies have linked these wildfires to climate change, in particular relating to the burning of coal, oil, and gas. Protesters in the U.S. Capitol rallied against the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Demonstrators gathered in front of the Supreme Court, waving banners with messages urging senators to wait until November's election to confirm a new Supreme Court judge. President Donald Trump nominated Barrett to the Supreme Court on Saturday in a move widely criticized by the Democratic Party as a rushed way to consolidate a conservative majority in the court. Voters in Switzerland have strongly rejected the Nationalist Party proposal that wanted to limit the number of European Union citizens allowed to live and work in their country. With all referendum votes counted, nearly 62% say they wanted to keep free movement.
With this result, the Swiss population confirmed once again its will to pursue the bilateral path, and it did so 10 times since the year 2000. It's also good news for our European partners. Citizens of this country choose stability and confirmed Switzerland's commitment towards bilateral relations.
An overnight curfew in Australia's second biggest city, Melbourne, will be left from Monday, almost 2 months after it was imposed. But people will still be confined to within 5 kilometers of their homes.
And it was the public health team's view that the curfew is not a proportionate measure to have in place going forward. That's where we're at this point in time. And the new fines that will be in place from tomorrow night are really to focus down on that transmission risk and to be a reminder and an actual penalty for a breach of those stay-at-home directions where individuals might unlawfully gather in private homes.
India has emerged as a new global hotspot for the coronavirus pandemic as infections approach 6 million. The South Asian country has seen a rise in infections following the lifting of lockdown measures. Over 88,000 fresh cases were recorded in the last 24 hours, and the death toll has risen to almost 95,000. The government lifted the most restrictions in order to protect the economy, which was battered by the pandemic.
Yeah, right now university is closed, school and campuses is closed. But you cannot shut down every business because the economy gonna be collapsed and we cannot survive because that is pretty costly. Okay, this COVID didn't gonna pay your rent in the month, right?
And now let's take a look at more news from around the world.
16 workers in China have died from carbon monoxide poisoning after being trapped in an underground coal mine in the city of Chongqing. According to local authorities, a conveyor belt caught fire in the early hours of Sunday, which produced dangerous levels of carbon monoxide. The exact cause of the fire is still under investigation. In Spain, residents in a locked-down Madrid neighborhood have protested outside the regional parliament, demanding local health services be reinforced amid a new coronavirus outbreak. Spain is fighting a cumulative coronavirus caseload of over 700,000, with Madrid and its surrounding region accounting for more than 1/3 of new infections.
We are here to show that we have dignity as people. We are here because they have abandoned us, and we will feel that we have gone back to the 1980s, when neighbors were dying because of drugs, and now they want to see how we die from the virus.
The first exit polls in Romania's local elections show that center-right candidate Nicu Sardan has won the race to be Bucharest mayor with over 47% of the votes. Nicu Sardan is supported by a center-right coalition made of the ruling National Liberal Party and the USR Plus alliance. According to the same poll, incumbent Mayor Gabriela Firea came second, getting 39% of the vote. However, she said she planned to wait for the official results before admitting defeat.
The remains of 117 Chinese volunteer soldiers who were killed during the Korean War have returned home. People in Shenzhen fled the streets from the airport to the Martyrs Cemetery on Sunday to salute the fallen heroes. This is the 7th batch of remains of fallen Chinese soldiers to return home, following a handover agreement signed between China and South Korea in 2014. The Chinese People's Volunteers fought alongside the People's Army of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the war of resistance against U.S. aggression and aid in Korea from 1950 to 1953. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Thank you for watching.